Okay, so the base stats of the new variants are out, and I will teach you in the pin comment how to find these base stats. Okay, basically there's this really cool dude, Krazit. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I'm sorry if I butchered it. He has this database for all the fighters base stats, and he constantly updates it, and he already included the new variants. Okay, so we already have the base stats of the 3 new variants, so I might have to refine some of my takes and impressions about these variants. All right, let's start with Vintage Virtuoso Big Band. So as I said yesterday, this variant's signature abilities are purely offensive, so how good he's going to be is going to depend on what his base attack is going to look like. I also said that according to Melon, he was most likely going to be a stat clone of either Troublemaker or Resident Evil. So as you can see over here, he turned out to be a stat clone of Troublemaker. Okay, not a robocopy, it's Troublemaker. Okay, so Melon further explained that their impression on this variant being a very decent attacker was based on the assumption that the enrage was going to last 15 seconds. Now that we know it's 10 seconds, it might not be as good as like initial impressions told us. So what happens here is, I do think Vintage Virtuoso is going to be very fun to use, but I would keep him at silver. Like, I always talk about the importance of doing silver prize fights on my streams, and yeah, I do think Vintage is like he's a very solid candidate for this. And okay, so another take I saw was like the precision making an impact. 1 precision every 10 combo hits is negligible as far as precision hits are concerned. So precision hits maximize their value when you can control when you unleash these hits. Very hard to do if the precision trigger is 10 combo hits, because what if they're in the air, and what if it's in like the middle of a beat extend or a level 3 blockbuster. It's really hard. Okay, it's really hard to control this kind of precision trigger, which makes the precision itself a lot less useful. So precision in most of these spots when using this variant it's just basically like a guaranteed crit after the 10th hit and a marker for where they get enrage. All right, so there. Vintage Virtuoso, solid silver. I wouldn't evolve him beyond that personally. All right, High Ruler. So they were right. She did end up being a stat clone of Princess Pride. Pretty unfortunate in my opinion, because her signature abilities were so good. But 8,500 is not gonna cut it. As far as like elevating her to like a top tier status, this 8,500 is gonna hold her back a bit. Okay, so for perspective, as far as damage output is concerned, Primed has over 11,000 attack. Not only that, not only does she have 11,000 plus, she has access to enrage, so her effective damage output is well beyond 11 plus thousand. Okay, with 5 stacks of enrage, she goes up to like 22 to 23,000, which is insane. Okay, so like compare that to 8,500. Oh yeah. So for anyone who thinks this is gonna be like the next Somersault, or someone who would eventually overtake Somersault, yeah, that's probably not gonna happen with this stat line. Definitely not. Okay, don't get me wrong, again, we can't take away from the signature ability. It is really strong, but without a respectable offensive stat line to go with it. Like, what's the point of all this utility if it doesn't deal enough damage? That's the issue here. The issue was never the signature ability. The issue was just the damage that comes with it. She's definitely going to be like, she's gonna turn weaker teams into a joke, okay? For sure. But when we're talking late game and really tanky, well-invested fighters, yeah, this 8.5k stat line hurts her quite a bit. As far as offensive parasols are concerned, if I were to rank them right now, number one is definitely still Somersault. Like, but it's not even close. Jesus Christ. Somersault's at the top, followed by Primed, and then maybe followed closely by High Ruler. You could even argue that Primed and High Ruler could be at the same level. Like, you could say High Ruler is like a side grade of Primed. It just depends on what you need. If you need more damage, you go Primed. If you need more utility, you go High Ruler. There's argument for that, I guess. But I'm not really into that. I still think High Ruler is like a third. She lags a bit behind Primed just because, yeah, the base attack is really, come on, guys. Man. I mean, at least it's not Regally Blonde's base attack, okay? At least it's not Regally Blonde. So this is okay. I do think, and guys, please don't get the impression I'm saying High Ruler is garbage. Like, oh Jesus Christ! Like, when I don't say it, like, this is something that like fucking wrinkles my balls whenever I discuss fighters. When I talk about the weaknesses or certain factors that hold a variant back, I'm not saying they're garbage, okay? I'm just saying they're not broken. And when I'm saying a fighter is really, 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 really strong, I'm also not saying they're broken. I'm just saying they're really strong. Like, you guys, a lot of viewers have this problem. Like, they're either broken or garbage. Like, come on, guys. There's like a huge thing in between, right? Fighters are not either cracked or dog water. And yeah, another thing, I do think High Ruler is a very, very good like example of why you don't get jebaited into going all in on the signature abilities when judging a fighter. Like, if you base it just on signature abilities, then yeah, I would say, if it's just in a vacuum, signature abilities, she is the best parasol. On offense, at least. She is the best. But that's an incomplete assessment. You gotta look at the base stats. And when you see that 5k difference between High Ruler and Somersault, yeah, that take falls apart. Okay? Somersault is still the queen of offensive parasols right now. It's not even close. Okay, so let's come to a more practical assessment. What would I, if I had this variant, would I evolve her to a diamond? Yes, absolutely, I would. After everything I said, I still would. Again, she has very, very good dueling potential. Dueling, I mean 1v1. And yeah, there are some very tricky 1v1 nodes in Rift. And High Ruler could help with these quite a lot. So yeah, absolutely. I would still say she's worth evolving to a diamond. Honestly, if we go all the way back to my prioritization system, which I was doing in the Gold Fighter discussions, I still think she's high priority, dude. I still do think she's high priority. Yeah. But again, she's just behind Primed and Somersault. That's all. I mean, third place ain't bad. This fighter ain't bad. Alright, finally we have Wetwork. So she ended up not being a stat clone of anyone. However, she's kind of like a mix. She has plot twisted base attack and overclocks base HP. Okay. This one makes me really sad. I'm not gonna lie. 10,000. Yeah. You know, there's something I noticed. The devs are really scared of releasing a Valentine with very high base damage numbers. I'm starting to see a pattern. I guess it's for a good reason. Like, when you really think about it, a lot of why so many of us are waiting for a natural diamond Valentine that has, like, you know, somewhere around the 13k base attack range. Probably the reason why we want one so bad is because, you know, maybe deep down we know that shit's broken. Okay, so my assessment, again, I would still count this as initial impressions. I would still think Tress is better given this 10k stat line. We could be wrong if you take into account like aerial combos with like Enrage, crit investment, augmenting Deathmark damage output, plus armor break. I mean, combining those, she could overtake Tress, but it might not be by that much. I do think how good wet work is going to be in general hinges on how easy it's going to be to stack those evasions. And just like, if she could be used the same way Snakebite can be used, wherein he just starts stacking evasion and just becomes like a fucking unkillable sweeper. If wet work can function that way, then yeah, I could see her being better than Tress. But yeah, we'll see. Honestly, it doesn't look very likely. A full second, it's longer than you think. 1 second of charging time is way longer than you think. The good news is, look at her HP. It's 70k. And if you look at her typing, she's a water type. So just these two bits of information alone, it makes her a very solid frost armor piece at worst. I wouldn't say she's up there with Plot Twisted and Model Leader. She still has to prove herself on that front. I do think if the AI can manage to stack even just one stack of evasion consistently, could be pretty spooky. But yeah, we'll see when she gets released. But the stat line does skew her a bit towards defense, which is, again, I find awkward because the second half of her signature ability is offensive. Alright? But again, the devs tested out these variants. It's probably a 10k for a reason. There's probably this spot where if you optimize her air combos, her damage output could end up being insane. So we'll see on release. I'm just taking things at face value right now, and I can say that 10,000 on a natural diamond is not very good for offense. It's really not. That's all I can say. But again, I'm just taking this at face value. We don't have the variants yet. No one's gotten to use them yet. So we'll see on release. Overall, if I get her, I would still invest in her 100%. The fact that, I mean, a positive way to look at it is she has a flexible stat line, right? You could use her. She could be a very decent attacker. She could also be a very decent defender, just by virtue of frost armor. So yeah, I do think like the potential is there on both ends, and that is promising. So yeah, that's it. That's my like refined version of my first impressions. Vintage Virtuoso, very fun to use for sure, though I'd keep him at silver personally. High Ruler, definitely not broken, definitely not better than Somersault, but definitely very good. I would still evolve her to Diamond. Wet Work, 10k. Stat line, very disappointing on the offensive end. Defensive potential's there because she has a lot of HP. I would still absolutely invest in her if I have her. Okay, so those are my impressions. Hope you all learned something. Thanks for watching, and that's a wrap, guys.